There are times when distance doesn't mean detachment. Sometimes silence is louder than words, and space is not the absence of care, but the disguise of it. When someone is deeply intrigued yet struggles to reveal it openly, the signs slip through their behavior like cracks in a wall. If you've ever felt the paradox of coldness mixed with undeniable pull, what follows will open your eyes to the hidden signals that show you're living in their mind far more than you realize. When someone seems to withdraw, creating an atmosphere of coolness and silence, it can be easy to believe that interest has faded. But distance is not always rejection. Sometimes it is the clearest reflection of emotional pull. When a person feels drawn in deeply yet does not know how to navigate the intensity, the instinct is to step back. That step backward is not meant to erase the connection. It is a way of managing it, of processing the very emotions that have taken root. The paradox lies in the way that the mind can be captivated while the body appears unavailable. And it is within this tension that the truth begins to show. You notice that even in the quiet stretches, the energy between you does not fade. There is a certain awareness that lingers in the air, an unspoken current that betrays the outer stillness. The more someone feels, the more they may try to conceal it, as though closeness itself is a risk. The act of pulling away is, in fact, a sign that they have been pulled in too far already. Emotional pull makes them cautious, careful, hesitant, because the deeper the connection, the greater the vulnerability. The contradiction is powerful. You feel the absence, yet you sense the weight of presence in other forms. A sudden look that holds too much meaning before it is quickly diverted. A pause in conversation that feels heavier than silence should. A tension in the air when you enter the room. These are not random occurrences. They are fragments of emotion slipping through the cracks of guarded behavior. Even when distance is put up like a wall, the truth is that walls are only built where something precious exists inside. Emotional pull is not about dramatic displays or constant contact. It's about the quiet resistance that reveals how much space you occupy in someone's inner world. The act of withdrawing is not because you are unimportant, but because you are significant enough to shake their balance. It is the push and pull of desire meeting fear, connection colliding with self-protection. This is why distance does not weaken the bond, it intensifies it. The mind becomes a battlefield where longing and restraint wrestle endlessly, and every step back is simply proof that the pull is real, undeniable, and too powerful to ignore. There is a language in silence that speaks louder than words, and it shows itself in the way attention lingers, even when presence feels withdrawn. Subtle attention is one of the clearest signs that you occupy someone's thoughts, because it happens without fanfare, without open declarations, and often without them realizing how visible it is. You notice it in the way eyes follow you across a room, quickly shifting away when you glance back. You notice it in the way they remember tiny details you never thought mattered. Your favorite snack, a story you mentioned once, a color you said you liked. These little fragments of memory reveal how carefully they've been observing, collecting pieces of you even while pretending not to. Subtle attention is never loud or obvious. It hides in the in-between moments, in the pauses of interaction. When someone listens more deeply than they respond, it tells you that they are not just hearing words, but storing them. That's why a random comment you made weeks ago might resurface in an unexpected way. They will bring it up casually, as if it's nothing. But beneath that casualness is proof that your voice echoes long after the conversation ends. You also sense it in body language, the slight lean forward even while maintaining composure, the soft mirroring of gestures without conscious effort, the almost invisible shift of posture when you move closer. The eyes especially betray the mind. Even if they try to appear distant, the way they look at you when they think you're not watching carries an intensity that cannot be hidden. It is through these subtle cues that the truth becomes clear. You are being studied, noticed, remembered. The distance may make it seem as though you're not a priority, but the quiet attention says otherwise. It proves that even in silence, you occupy space in their awareness. This kind of attention doesn't just reveal interest, it reveals investment. Because remembering small details requires care. Observing without intention to act still requires focus. It is effortless for them to notice you because their mind is already tuned in, even when they try to resist. This is why subtle attention is one of the most powerful signs that you are in someone's head. They may act reserved, but every glance, every recollection, every unspoken acknowledgement ties back to one undeniable truth. You are unforgettable in their world, whether or not they ever admit it aloud. There is a moment when distance begins to crumble, not through words, but through reactions that slip out when least expected. Jealousy has a way of exposing what the heart tries to hide. It does not always appear in obvious ways. Sometimes it shows in a flicker of expression, a sudden change in tone, or an unexpected shift in energy when your attention drifts elsewhere. When someone is truly hooked yet pretending to be distant, the presence of another person near you can stir emotions they cannot fully control. They might act indifferent, but their body language, their subtle discomfort, betrays the truth. It might be a quick glance when you're laughing with someone else, a silence that grows heavier when another name enters the conversation, or a dismissive remark meant to disguise unease. The distance they try so hard to maintain becomes fragile in the face of jealousy, because when you mean nothing, there is no reaction. But when you matter, even the smallest threat to that connection stirs something deep. This is why jealousy, even in its quietest form, becomes undeniable proof of where their thoughts linger. Sometimes the signs are sharper. They might interrupt conversations without realizing it, or suddenly shift the topic when another person is brought up. Other times, it's more restrained, a simple tightening of the jaw, a forced smile, or a sudden withdrawal when they feel replaced in your attention. Each of these responses points back to the same root: they care, even when they are trying to convince both you and themselves that they don't. What makes jealousy such a revealing sign is its rawness. It bypasses logic, bypasses restraint, and emerges instinctively. A distant act can be carefully crafted, but jealousy cannot be rehearsed. It is the unguarded truth of the heart spilling into the open, even in the smallest gestures. And every time it happens, it confirms that you are not just passing through their mind, you are settled there, taking up more space than they would ever admit. This quiet battle between detachment and jealousy shows how deeply you affect them. They may keep their distance, but the moment someone else steps close, the illusion cracks. The mask of indifference slips, and what remains is the undeniable reality: you are not easily replaced, not easily ignored, and certainly not forgotten. Mixed signals can feel like a storm you can't quite predict. Warmth in one moment, distance in the next, as though the connection is being offered with one hand and pulled back with the other. At first, it may seem confusing, even frustrating, but beneath this inconsistency lies a truth that often goes unnoticed. When someone is hooked yet fighting their own emotions, the result is this push and pull, a dance of closeness and retreat. It is not born from lack of interest, but from the overwhelming presence of it. There are times when their energy feels undeniable, when they lean into you with curiosity, when conversations flow effortlessly and you sense the depth of their attention. In those moments, it feels as though nothing could break the rhythm. Then suddenly, they shift back, almost as if they regret revealing too much. This back and forth can leave you questioning the connection, but it is actually one of the strongest signs of attachment. Mixed signals are not about indifference. They are about struggle. The struggle is between desire and control. One part of them wants to lean in, to stay close, to surrender fully to the pull. Another part urges caution, reminding them of fears, past scars, or the risk of vulnerability. This inner conflict spills out in their actions, creating a pattern that feels inconsistent, but is, in reality, a reflection of how much they are affected. Someone who feels nothing does not need to send mixed signals, they simply stay distant. But when you matter, the inconsistency arises because they cannot commit fully to detachment nor fully to openness. You may notice it in sudden shifts, moments of intense eye contact, followed by avoidance. Conversations that begin with interest but end abruptly, gestures of care that are later disguised as casual. These contradictions are not accidental. They are the signs of someone trying to balance what they feel with what they fear. The heart leans forward while the mind pulls back, and you become caught in the middle of that silent tug of war. Instead of viewing mixed signals as rejection, it helps to see them for what they truly are: evidence of investment. They wouldn't need to retreat if they hadn't already stepped too close. They wouldn't hesitate to reveal if there wasn't something real to hide. Mixed signals are the shadow of deep emotion, a quiet confirmation that you live in their thoughts even when they try to disguise it with distance. There is a tenderness that hides beneath the mask of distance, a quiet vulnerability that rarely makes itself visible, yet it is always there. When someone is deeply affected, they do not always show it through open gestures or obvious confessions. Instead, they protect what they feel as though it is fragile, too precious to be exposed. This is where unspoken vulnerability lies, in the pauses, in the restraint, in the guarded way they choose to hold back even while they are deeply moved. What seems like indifference is often simply fear of letting too much slip through. You notice it in small moments when the exterior cracks, when their eyes soften for just a second too long, or when their voice trembles ever so slightly before regaining control. It's in the way they seem careful with their words, as though revealing too much might unravel the barrier they've worked so hard to maintain. Vulnerability is not always shown through declarations of affection. Sometimes it reveals itself in hesitation, in the weight of what is left unsaid. Their silence is not emptiness, it is full of meaning. It carries the weight of emotions that cannot be spoken outright. You sense it when they withdraw right at the moment connection grows deeper, not because they want to let go, but because holding on too tightly exposes them to the risk of being seen fully. Vulnerability is frightening because it strips away control, and when someone is truly hooked, the thought of losing composure becomes too real. Even their attempts to act unaffected betray them. The more they try to appear distant, the more obvious it becomes that something within them is stirring. The contradiction between their behavior and their subtle expressions is itself a sign of vulnerability. It's not that they don't care. It's that they care too much, and caring exposes the softest parts of the heart. What they won't say out loud is revealed in the way they linger near without stepping closer, in the way they show concern but quickly cover it with casualness, in the way they avoid deep topics only to circle back to them later. Vulnerability, though hidden, cannot be erased. It seeps through the smallest actions, reminding you that behind every layer of distance lies a truth they are afraid to reveal. You matter more than they want you to know. Consistency has a way of revealing what words and actions try to hide. Even when someone acts distant, their patterns speak louder than their attempts at detachment. If you look closely, you'll notice that no matter how far they pull away, there is always a thread that keeps them tied to you. They may not overwhelm you with constant attention, but they never disappear completely either. That quiet, steady presence, the little check-ins, the subtle reminders that they are still around, is what exposes the truth. Consistency behind the mask is one of the strongest signs that you linger in their mind more than they admit. It could be the way they always resurface after silence, as though they can only stay away for so long, or the way they remember to ask about something you mentioned long ago, proving that they have been listening all along. These gestures may seem small, almost insignificant, but they are deliberate in their repetition. Someone who feels nothing does not show up in these ways. It is only when you matter that the mind refuses to let you fade, pulling them back toward you again and again. Even when they keep their distance, there's a reliability in their presence. You may notice it in how they like a post you shared, how they reply when you least expect it, or how they show up in moments you didn't think they noticed. It's never constant enough to overwhelm, yet never absent enough to make you doubt their awareness. That balance, distant yet consistent, proves that they are caught between their desire to protect themselves and their inability to let you slip away. This consistency is not always loud. Sometimes it's in the smallest patterns that repeat themselves. A certain look every time your paths cross, a routine of checking in after a while, or the habit of reappearing right when you begin to question their absence. It's these quiet returns that reveal the depth of thought behind their actions. They may not confess, but the way they always circle back says everything. Behind the distance, there is an anchor. Their behavior may feel unpredictable, but the consistency proves a deeper truth. You are not forgotten, not replaceable, not a fleeting thought. You are the presence that keeps drawing them back, no matter how hard they try to mask it. And that persistence, subtle as it may be, is the clearest sign that you have carved a permanent place in their mind. Distance can often feel like disinterest, but when you look closer, the signs tell another story. The way attention lingers in silence, the subtle cues that slip out without control, the flashes of jealousy, the contradictions of mixed signals, the quiet vulnerability, and the steady consistency. All of these reveal what words try to conceal. What may seem like coldness on the surface is often a reflection of depth within, a careful attempt to guard emotions that are already too strong to ignore. The truth is, when someone is truly hooked, it shows even in their absence. It shows in the way they cannot help but notice, in the way they cannot fully walk away, in the way they return no matter how far they drift. Every retreat is followed by a reminder. Every mask of indifference cracks under the weight of genuine feeling. So when you find yourself questioning whether distance means detachment, remember that actions often speak louder than presence. The unspoken energy, the repeated patterns, the quiet pull that never fades, all of it is proof that you are in their head more than they will ever say. Sometimes love doesn't shout. Sometimes it whispers through contradictions, leaving behind a trail of signs for you to see if you choose to look deeper.